Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Hobbies and Happiness Podcast, a Disney Lorcana podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
I'm Jim, and today it's to be or not to be King Undisputed.
All right, Jim. I liked it. I like it.
It felt good.
It worked. So we were discussing before we hit the record button of how do we make this introduction, and I think Jim did a phenomenal job. Well done, Jim. Well done. Yay!
Hooray!
So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's episode of the Hobbies and Happiness Podcast. What we're talking about this week is to be king or to be Kingmaker. Mm-hmm. King or Kingmaker. This topic has come up in every single game of multiplayer Disney Lorcana, I think, that we've played. But hey, before we get into this week's episode, we got a few things to talk about. So first of all, hey, are you watching this over on YouTube? If you are, you've got some sweet visuals. You're able to see my sweet Roosevelt's hoodie. I am in season for Halloween. This is the Haunted Mansion. You've got all the ghosts on here. This hoodie feels awesome, beautiful. I love it. So you can see it if you're watching us on YouTube, and if you're watching us, hey, don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on bell notifications so you can be notified when we release more episodes of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast every single week. So if you are one of those 70% who are watching but not subbed, let's fix that right now. Hit that like button, sub to the channel, and turn on the notifications so you can get notified when we release more content every single week. And hey, are you listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform? If you are, thank you. We love you so much. And if you could do us a favor, it'd be awesome. Leave us a review. Leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform that you're listening to us on. It really helps us reach more people. So the more listeners, the better. And the more reviews, the better as well. Who knows? Maybe if we get some sweet reviews, we'll read them on the show. Also, did you know we have a Patreon? If you want to support us, you can head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. Again, that is patreon.com/hobbies and happiness to find out more about how you can support us over there. We've got 3 different tiers that you can sign up for with some sweet rewards at every single tier. We recently got our stickers in. We're going to be sending those out. I'm going to send them out this weekend. I've just been putting it off because I've just been too busy. So those are going out this weekend. So again, patreon.com/hobbies and happiness to see what kind of sweet benefits that you can get by joining us over there. And lastly, did you know we also have a Discord that's free and open to everybody? Link down in the description if you want to join that. And there's also a private chat for our patrons where we like to interact and a little more in depth with our patrons over there. So again, link down in the description. I couldn't say what the link is. It's some weird link, but hey, it's down in the description or the podcast notes, however you're listening or watching us this week. So, all right, I've been actually thinking about this episode for a while. Jim, do you? How long? Honest question, right? How long have you actually thought about this topic? Because this has come up plenty of times.
I'm pretty sure we started to notice this somewhere around episode 3, episode 4 is when we were really like, every single game has gotten to this point. Yes. And this is what it seems like.
It does. It does. Yeah, it does.
It's been a little bit.
It does. So again, this week, it's to be king or to be Kingmaker. Okay. Now, what are we actually talking about here? What are we talking about? So you've got 2 different things. You've got king and Kingmaker. What do we mean when we say king or Kingmaker? Okay. All right, Jim, if I asked you to define what do we mean when we say king? Let's start with the easier one first. Yeah. How would you describe that? What are we talking about if you want to be king?
Do you guys want to win? Do you guys want to win?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's pretty much what it means to be king in this instance. You're going to try and win. Well, I guess everyone's going to try and win, but someone has to be the winner.
Yep. Yeah. It's always somebody always has to win. Like it has to run, or excuse me, somebody has to win. The game has to end. But I think on a more like exact point, I think what it means is every single decision that you are making if you are in that position is you are making the decisions and choices that you're making without regard, not necessarily without regard for anybody else, right? But all the decisions are, I don't really care about anybody else. I'm doing what's best for me, not necessarily what's best for the table, but what's best for me, right? And that's going, and I'll admit that's going one step further, right? But
sometimes that could just mean different things.
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, I acknowledge that that's going like one step a little bit further. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think if you just want to win, if you're out to win, like, okay, you're trying to be king, which every single player at the start of the game, that's what every single player is trying to do. When you're in the mid to late game, your role can change a little bit. Your role can change a little bit. Okay. So that being said, Jim, what do we mean when we say Kingmaker? When somebody says you're king making, what exactly are they saying there?
Kingmaker is more specifically going towards the idea of, say two people are really close to winning the game. You're essentially, if you only have one way to stop one person, well, if you stop player one, well, now player two is going to go ahead and win. But if you don't stop player one, then player one is then just going to go ahead and win the game. Mm-hmm. So it usually, like Dan was saying, in that mid to late game stages of it, it's like I just got a little too far behind. A lot of people were taking care of my board. I was getting 2-for-1 a lot. RNG just was not on my side. There can be a lot of things that go into, you essentially becoming Kingmaker.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we're all in that position at some point in the game. Okay, yeah. especially in Disney Lorcana, right? But every single player is going to be put in that position at some point or another. Now, we're going to talk about towards the later portion of this episode, like advice to keep yourself out of that position. Because, Jim, does it feel good to be in the position of being a Kingmaker?
Oh my goodness. It's no, it doesn't. I was telling Dan right before we started recording, I'm like, reading over the outline, I was just like, I felt all the stress and disgust in my stomach that it feels when you're Kingmaker. You're like, oh, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Why? So let me ask you then, because I remember there have been many times, maybe not many times, but there's been multiple times.
A good chunk.
There's been multiple times where you've been put in that position, you felt it, and then when you and I have our recap and we're talking over the game, or even in the moment, it's literally, I hate this. Why? Right? Why do you hate this feeling, Jim? Why?
To me, it's stressful, right? There's a lot of thinking involved with it as well, because it's like, okay, I don't want to just stop one person. How can I stop both of the people from trying to win the game? And then sometimes I make the choice, but it's, again, still being Kingmaker to the next person who's going to win. I don't even want to think about it. I'm just going to play a Merlin goat, like I'm not even going to play to anything that's going to help someone else potentially win.
Yep. And honestly, to be honest with you guys, when I was putting a lot of this together, I literally had Jim in mind when thinking about like advice, because there's literally been times where he's been like, literally just like he said, he's just going to remove himself and then just play a goat. And then when I'm in the position to win, like if I know that he's just going to do nothing and there's somebody before me who's going to win and he just chooses to not stop them, what he's king making and just saying, okay, you're going to win. And I don't like that because I want to win, right? But also, I also feel like that is a violation of the social contract. Personally, I think it is a violation of the social contract.
No, that's why do I think I did not sign up to be this stressed out. Okay. I'm here to have fun, not stress.
But why do I say that, right? Why do I say I think it's a violation of the social contract? Okay. Because again, when you sign up, and again, am I taking this a little too far? Yes, but I am bringing it up to make a point right? And I think it's a good conversation to have, right? But what do I mean by this? Okay, I think when anyone sits down to play a game, okay, what is everyone's goal at the outset besides having fun? You're trying to win. Everyone is trying to make a good faith effort to win. And honestly, let's actually talk about this within the scope of Ravensburger's OP program. And what are they doing when they've talked about 2-game format, the whole intentional draw, which if you guys have listened to us at any point in time, you know our stance on intentional draws. It's a thing of TCGs and it happens all the time. And again, I don't believe that people who take IDs, and I did this multiple times in set champs. Why am I doing this? Because I don't want to risk going 0-2 and then losing out on top cut when I know if I ID here, I will be guaranteed a spot in top cut. Okay. That is, in my opinion, and you can have differing opinions, that's fine. But I think in this case, Jim and I are on the same page here, because I think if you take an ID, you are putting forth a good faith effort to put yourself in the best position to win. And is that in the spirit of the game? I 100% believe that's within the spirit of TCGs. Absolutely, without question. You may disagree. That's fine. But Jim, what's your take on that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with drawing, if you know that you're going to set yourself up to be able to make the top 8, get the playmat, get the cards, blah, 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 whatever it is, it's you have to do what's best for yourself.
Right.
And what's going to get you there.
Right. Now,
because
within the
this is a game, but a tournament, when it is different at that point.
100%.
There's something
100%.
on the line, right?
100%.
When there's prizes, when there's money, whatever it is, you have to do what is best for you.
Right. And there's 2 other points that I want to make. Okay. The other thing is, again, I acknowledge this is a different experience when we're talking about 4-player multiplayer, right? We're not talking about a tournament setting. No, we're not. But we are still talking about a game in which everyone sits down and everybody wants to win. And every decision that they're making, for the most part, is in regards to, I'm making this decision to set me up for the best position to win the game potentially. Okay. And when you remove that, when you just say, I'm not going to do anything because I don't really care. I'm not saying that's the attitude here, right?
Yeah.
But it could be construed that way or whatever the case may be. That is a violation of the social contract of the game itself. Okay. Now, what's the extent of it? The extent is, people feel bad. Crap, I didn't get to win. Dang it. And you have people at the table going, oh, and then it ends there. Like, it's not that big a deal, to be honest with you. But I think the other part is too, if you then win in that instance, the win, and this is obviously different for every single person because this is very much on an individual level, but winning doesn't feel as sweet. If somebody lets you win, it doesn't feel as sweet, right? I mean, Jim, like, do you agree with that, or do you have a different philosophy there?
I mean, usually when you have to work and overcome something to get the win, to get whatever it is, the carrot on the stick, whatever it is,
right? Right.
It's so much more sweet.
Oh yeah,
so much more.
It is, and when you remove that, then it doesn't feel good for that person, right? And so try not to do that if you can. And there's instances where I'm just going to give a hot take. My hot take is you always have that choice. And if you are going to just say, screw it, I don't want to, it's too stressful, I'm just going to play GOAT.
Play GOAT pass.
Play GOAT pass. I think that is what you're doing. Okay. And I also acknowledge there are definitely times where for sure it's stressful. 100%, because again, like, you don't really know, you don't know how it's going to play out. Right. But again, I think towards the end of this, I'm going to try and give some advice where I think if you follow some of these steps and advice, I think you will you will put yourself in the best position to not have to be in a king-making position. And then if you are, I think there's really one thing that you can do to just follow this, and then that kind of absolves you from being the quote-unquote kingmaker. I think Disney Lorcana is a very, very different experience, right? But also, you really genuinely do have very easy outs to say, I'm not king making here. I am just doing what I'm supposed to do in this position. Okay. So we'll talk about that. But before we move on to the actual, like, how to navigate this, right? Lorcana is a very different play and social experience when, in order for you to win on your next turn, okay, if it's your turn, you have to be able to pass, and then the rest of the table needs to not be in a position where they can also win before it gets back to you. Because again, what are we talking about? This is a first to the finish line. This is not last man standing. Okay. This is not last man standing. It's first to finish. And so again, I'm comparing this to Magic the Gathering, right? Where I'm trying to take everybody else out with my board, with my characters, and then be the last one alive. It's so much different. It's so different. And I've honestly been trying to pinpoint the why. Like, why is it so different? Does it really just boil down to it's a difference of first to finish and last man standing? Like, have you thought about this at all, like significantly at all, Jim, on why the feeling is so different? Because I think you and I agree that the feeling is extremely different when we're playing this game. Why do you think that is?
You know, what I've noticed from Magic is, you know, usually if someone doesn't win with just like an infinite combo and then, you know, gets rid of everyone all in the same turn, progressively the game gets easier. You have fewer people to worry about. You have fewer turns to get back to your turn now at this point, right? So I think that's one of the things.
Yeah.
And, you know, like if someone popped off, say the last turn, but then you and some other person work together to take them out, that person's no longer a threat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're saying, it's last one standing. You know, when you're able to take people completely out of the game, not just like figuratively speaking, it's like, oh, I cleared your board and you don't have a hand, right? But it's like you're still in the game and potential you could still win.
Right.
There's no way to clearly take them out because they're still sitting over there with 18 lore. All they need is a 1-drop, right? That can win them the game.
Yeah.
And if 3 people don't have the removal,
and they don't have the removal,
they just win.
Right.
They just win the game.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's and you can't in Magic. It's also a form of like relying on other people to help you become essentially like that second place person and then take out the other person in the end game, right? Like how many times do I essentially group up or team up with everyone else at the table to slowly pick apart every other person at the table, and I aim for second place. I aim for second place, but then I'm able to take that person out in the end game. Right? It's drastically different.
It is. It's
not even just like because it's like it's like, yes, it's because it's how the game is set up.
Right, how the game functions.
It's just so intricate.
Right.
Of the two.
Right.
You know, just how different they are.
Yeah, it's so different. And how many times and we've talked about this extensively, like the political games, like being political at the table. But I genuinely think that the political game is so much more relevant in Disney Lorcana because you seriously, you have to work with the table every single turn. You were talking about there's a player who's at 18 lore. And they don't have any cards in their hand. They're top decking, and doesn't matter. They'll put a character down.
Yep.
And then it's just, okay, stop me. Every single turn. So again, as a table, you guys, who has an out? Who can deal with this? Who can deal with this?
Like, this card has ward. Now do we have any AoE or person sacrifice?
Correct. Yeah. It's so weird. But I genuinely think, like, I love it. I think it makes for dynamic games, dynamic social games, right? And it's so different. It's just so different, and it's a lot of fun. It really is, right? But I agree with, I do not like being in the position of crap. I'm gonna be Kingmaker here. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
But it's I genuinely think you can put yourself in a position to where, hey, if you follow, I'm just gonna say like the social contract. I'm just gonna say that that's what it is, right? Just for ease, I guess.
Yeah.
Because again, it may not necessarily be the case, right? I'll agree with that, right? But I do believe that it's an attitude thing, and Jim and I have talked about this a little bit. But what I mean by that is I think you can make certain decisions that are logical, okay? And then, and especially in this game, right? And I'll just say it now. I'm just going to stop the next person. Hey, that's me fulfilling my obligation. And then what happens after that? That's not on me. That is not on me. And in that case, there's no need to feel guilt. There's no need to feel anxiety. In that position, it's okay. If there's multiple choices here, I'm just going to take the next person out, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But this is the only game where this has really come up, and I genuinely think that's why it's more anxious. Like there's so much more anxiety because it's stopping multiple different people versus. The decisions are so much easier when it's just taking everybody out, and then I'm last. The decision making is so much easier. Yeah. It's a lot easier. So, all right, let's move on to like actually navigating. How do you kind of navigate this, right? So how to play a multiplayer game like Disney Lorcana when and where king making is relevant every single game. Jim, have we ever played a game in which king making has not been relevant at all? Because again, it's the end game. Where this comes up is the end game.
Yes, we have.
We have.
Yes.
Okay, how so? Which
when
one?
I 0 to 20 with Tamatoa coin.
Oh yeah. Well, no. That definitely came up because again,
did it? I don't remember.
Well, because again, what was the discussion? What was the discussion there? The discussion there was from the rest of the table of how can we stop him before it, before you just got to 20? Because you're right. Yeah, you did go from 0 to 20. Right? How do we stop you? And
well,
I remember
I guess the question was, hey, is anyone in Steel that can get rid of items?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And it was like, oh, no one has item removal. All right, well, I guess y'all king make me then, right?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what it was. Because you were in the position of, I'm just going to sit back, play all my items. Nobody's going to do anything. They're going to fight amongst themselves. Yeah. And then I remember because Brandon was after me, and he was he was at 18, 19. And then I'm like, it did come down to, all right, do I just stop him or do I let it go? Because there was a genuine question there of, I'm in the position where I can stop Brandon, but I know if I stop Brandon, then Jim wins. Or if I don't stop Brandon, Brandon wins. Because regardless whether it got to you or not, you were gonna win, right? Yeah. And so I remember, like, I stopped Brandon, and I remember that because I did have that feeling of, man, I don't like doing this. But I did say, all right, Brandon's next. Like, I think I have a responsibility to stop him. I can't do anything about Jim. Like, I can't. But I am able to stop the next person. If I wasn't able to stop him, then doesn't matter. But because I have the ability to stop him, the next person who's going after me, I'm going to do that. And in that case, I felt like I'm absolved. I'm absolved of guilt. I'm absolved of anything because I did what I'm able to do here and stop the next person. So, and that's how I rationalized it. And I think it's a logical rationalization. I think it makes sense. Right?
Yeah. I get it.
So
for myself, I noticed that I like whenever I'm in those situations, and I believe it came up when we were playing the game with Flounder. What's his name?
we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about
okay.
that.
All right, we'll get there later.
There's specific points where we're going to bring this up 100% because it is extremely relevant. Extremely relevant.
Oh yeah.
And if you've seen that episode, you know what we're talking about. And when we talk about it, I'm going to tell you to go back and watch it because I was making a case at the time. But I acknowledged and I realized it was a tough decision. It was a tough decision.
Yeah.
I think Jim made the wrong decision. I can't say that I would have done something different. I don't think I can genuinely say that. But what you did made sense. Like your argument was very good, and it made sense why you made the decision. I still think you should have done something different, but we'll talk about when we get there. Because it's such a good scenario to talk about.
Yeah, it is.
It's so good. Okay, so in Disney Lorcana, when one player is about to cross the finish line, the rest of the table is incentivized to stop that player who is about to finish. Why? Because everybody else wants to win. And in order for them to win, they need to stop that person so it can get to them. Okay? So when there's a player who's at 0 lore, because this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the player who's at 0 and feels like they're in no contention to win. Okay? What do they do? And in our experience, this is when it comes up. This is when the feeling of being Kingmaker comes up. What do you do? The argument, again, I've already mentioned this, that I've heard a lot before. Okay. Stop the player who's next. Stop the player who's next. Is this a good baseline? Let's talk about this. Is this a good baseline? Jim, I want to get your initial take here. Do you think the stop the next player in turn order is a good baseline? And again, remember, we're talking baseline here. It doesn't necessarily have to be true in every single situation, but is that a good baseline to go from? What do you think?
I can agree with that.
Okay. Now again, I want it to be made clear and known. This may not necessarily be true 100% of the time.
Yeah.
It may not be true 100% of the time. But the reason I think it's a good baseline is if you are player 1 and then you pass to player 2 and then it's player 3. Okay. Player 2 and 3 are both in a position. They're both in a position to win next turn. Okay. If you skip over player 2 and then say, I'm going to stop player 3, you are then saying, for all intents and purposes, you're saying, I'm just going to give player 2 the win. I don't think it's necessarily true. If you stop player 2, you are saying, I'm just going to give player 3 the win. That's not necessarily true because why? Because I think player 2 then has an ability, ne'er do I say responsibility, to stop player 3. Okay? Because that's just how it works. Because again, let's think about it logically. Right? You need to get it to where the turn it's going to go back to you, right? If you don't stop player 2, it's not getting back to you. If you stop player 2, there's a chance 2 stops 3, and then 3 stops 4, and then it gets back to you. Okay, but if you just skip over somebody, I mean,
the next person
they're just gonna win.
Yeah.
So this is where politics comes in. Like it comes in so big. I think we're gonna reference this so many times. But what was it? It was Multiplayer Madness 13. It was 13. Okay. I remember when Jim was put in this position and he was decrying, I hate being Kingmaker. I put my political hat on and said, hey Jim, vote for me. I was making the case. I was making these. Now, I rewatched that video too. And we should have known what Jared had in his hand. We just forgot. We weren't thinking about it.
Dude, if I had $1,
I know, right?
If I had $1,
right? So again, remember, in order for you to win, you need the rest of the table to not win before it gets back to you.
Yeah.
Like, you need to remember that. And I genuinely believe if you think about it like that, think about, well, I just need everyone else to not win so it can get back to me. Think about it in that way versus who am I going to stop? Which person am I going to stop? Because you're framing it in your mind of you have a choice. When I genuinely think you don't. There's more times where you actually don't have an actual choice because the choice is extremely simple, and that's you stop player A or the next person, right? And so if you frame it that way versus I'm giving myself a choice, I think you're making it harder on yourself. I genuinely think you're making it harder on yourself. And then that's when you really feel like more anxious and you feel the anxiety. Like Jim, is that how you felt?
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Now, to that end though, right? If you need to trust the table, like if you need to talk amongst yourselves, you need to have some level of trust with the table. They will remember what you have done that entire game. Teddy. Teddy.
Right.
Well, my bad. Well, Jim, can you explain why I said that? Why I said Teddy? Do you remember that game?
Oh yeah, I remember the whole trust thing. So,
what happened? What did Teddy do there?
So, all right, if you guys haven't seen it, spoilers. It was a great episode. For sure, go watch it. Dan sets up a deal with Teddy.
Yep.
Right? Dan trusts Teddy. We've known Teddy for a while now, right? Little over a year or something like that. I don't know exactly.
Yep.
And and then Dan does his side of the bargain, does everything he needs to do. Now he's just like, okay, Teddy, pass over to you. You know what? Dan's trusting Teddy to do everything he needs to do.
Yep.
Teddy doesn't even stand his cards up. He's just like, I'm going to swing into your card, Dan.
That's true.
He's like, I just needed you to say pass, and I banish your card, dude. That's all I need. All right, he might have readied everything.
I don't know, man. He was real quick.
He's like, card into Dan. Dan's like, what? What?
I was like, excuse me?
Oh, man.
And then what happened after that, Jim?
Oh, man. Dan proceeded to do an onslaught of challenges and abilities towards Teddy for the remainder of the game.
I took that social contract and shredded it up.
No. He shredded it up.
That's
he
true.
Shredded the contract in front.
That's
in front
true.
of you.
That is true. And there were so many times where he was just like, but why are you I'm not even going to win. I don't care, Teddy. You think I care?
Dan's like, well, Teddy was saying, he's like, yeah, but if you don't attack into Jim's going to win. Dan's like, I don't care. I don't care.
That's true.
I don't care if Jim wins.
That's true. I don't even remember who won that game. All I remember is
did.
I
did.
won the game. All I know is Teddy didn't win because that was my goal.
Oh man. That was something else, man.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So yeah, players are going to remember. They're going to remember what you've done. They'll remember.
People never forget.
Yep, exactly. Players, like, they'll have an incentive to stop the next player who's going to win. Why? So they can win. Okay? Because again, if you I think it's a binary choice because it literally is. It's, do I stop this next person? If I don't stop them, then I lose. So yes, I have to do that. Then there's steps that follow after it. Yes, right? But that's where trusting the table comes in. That's where if you have more cards in your hand, can you do other things? Yeah. But it starts with the next player. Can it get money? 100%. Absolutely it can. So, all right. Now we're going to move on to talking about some advice. Okay. I came up with 1, 2, 3, 4. I came up with 7 points here.
Real quick, I did want to add on. So, like how you're talking about with a good baseline of just like target the next person, right? And it's a good line of thinking to have.
Yeah.
if like one person is just about to win, right?
Yeah.
I think it gets difficult when there's two or all three other people are about to win the game, right? I think, or how I thought about it in that game, it was like, okay, I know I can affect the whole board a little bit and make it to where, you know, why can I not remember his name?
Jared and James.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With Jared, I'm like, I call him Flounder.
Yeah, he loves Flounder. He loves Flounder. Yes.
Jared, right? Like, I set it up to where it's like, okay, if he has specific card, which I think he only had like one card in his hand, and then he was only gonna he had two cards in his hand.
2 cards, yeah.
And then he was gonna draw into 3, and so I'm like, okay, I can set it up to where the only way he wins is if he has this exact card, right? And that's kind of what I was basing that on, because also, all right, if I make it to where X percentage, Jared doesn't win or can only win, and then I also set it up to where it's like, okay, now Dan has X percentage of win the game, rather than, okay, I completely took Jared out and now rely on Jared to completely take Dan out. I was like, okay, I can affect the board all a little bit and play off percentages. And
right.
that
but
was
the
what
problem
my whole
is
mindset
the
was.
problem is you did that to yourself though.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You put those thoughts. Now, what you're saying is not necessarily incorrect, okay? But I think you make it harder on yourself when you try
100%.
to figure out what the odds are. Right. And that so don't do that, right? But that's that's the advice. That's the advice is don't think about it in that way. Okay.
You know how difficult that is for me?
I understand. I understand. But what you did there was you put it to where he was within 1. He would have quested to 19, I think. Is basically what it was. Because he needed 1 more. And that is dangerously close. Now in that game in particular, okay, I had Tama. I had a Tamatoa on board. Now, to Jim's point, I had many cards in my hand. Okay.
Yeah.
I had many cards in my hand, and he knew all I needed was a dime. I needed a dime. There was a dime in my deck. I
think you had like 6 cards in hand, and then ways to draw up to like 4 more cards or something along those lines.
True. However, I only had 1. There's so many reasons why this scenario is such a good thing to discuss, because there's so many things that came up. If you didn't watch this will be linked, okay? So you can go watch this episode. It's the last turn of the game, okay? In that particular moment, I had a Tamatoa on board. Okay, many cards in my hand. Now, at that time we had seen Jared drop You're Welcome. Okay, so we knew he was running You're Welcome, right? But in that moment, what Jim was trying to do was he chose the more difficult route of, I'm going to try and stop multiple people, versus I 100% stop this person and then I do what I can to affect this other person. Okay.
Because also going off of what you were saying earlier, right? Like, I need good odds to get back to my turn, right?
Yes.
And I thought overall that was the right scenario to take. If 2 people or 3 people are about to win, try to affect the board and lower percentages to get back to my turn, rather than, okay, I know Jared can't stop Dan. That is 100% not getting back to my turn.
Did you know that though?
I'm not saying like I knew exactly. I'm saying like in a possibility, he couldn't stop you. Like, Dan wins the game.
Right. But, and I think the point that I was making was I tried, because I didn't remember that he had Cricky in hand, because that was what he needed.
I didn't remember.
Because that was the other thing too. He had dime. Like, he had a dime on board. And all he needed was a character with 3 lore, and we knew he was running Cricky. I vaguely remembered, I was pretty sure he had another Cricky in hand. And James even said, because what happened here was Jared lied. Jared lied to us.
Yeah, I think
Jared did what he needed to do to win, right? He lied.
He was playing politics.
He was playing the politics game, because what happened was he had a Cricky on board. And then I believe Jim took care of the Cricky.
I think it somehow got bounced, and then he made it seem as, and then somehow got another one. Probably drew into it.
He definitely didn't. It definitely was not bounced. It definitely was not bounced, because he would have just been able to play it. But it got banished in some way, shape, or form. I can't remember if you challenged. I can't remember. We'd have to go back and actually watch. But I do know that it got taken. I do know it got taken care of. Okay, so it got taken care of off the board. Didn't get bounced back to this hand. But there was a point where James said, "Didn't he have another Cricky in hand?" And then Jared pointed, "This Cricky." And I think the words that he used, he was basically saying, "Well, that's right here." Yeah. And yes, he was pointing to a Cricky, but he had another one in hand.
Yeah.
And I went back, and there was a point where you played a nothing to hide, and he showed somebody played nothing to hide. I can't remember who.
Yeah.
But he showed two Crickies, and we just forgot.
Yeah.
We forgot.
No notes.
Okay? Yeah. No. Yeah. Right. No notes. So Jared did what he had to do. I mean, of course, again, if you're in that position, you're not going to be like, "No, I have win in hand. I have win in hand."
Yeah.
Now, there are times, I'll admit, there are times where I've done that, where I've said, now, but the thing was, and I say that to try and influence the decision of somebody
100%.
Else to stop,
100%.
To stop somebody else, right? It's all about influence. It's about influencing decision making, right? So in that moment, I didn't, and that I was honest. I said, I didn't have win. I don't have dime. But of course, like, would I say I have it? So of course nobody's going to believe you, right? When you're banking on them stopping the person before you, right?
Yeah.
So Jim was playing the odds, and I see why he made the decision he made, because it's very hard to argue stop the other guy when I have 8 cards in hand. And I'm about ready to be able to draw like
a
4
bunch
more.
Of ink, like
it's
able to draw a bunch of cards.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is such a good scenario, dude.
That game was pretty good.
It was crazy.
For this talk, it was good.
Correct.
I absolutely hated being in that moment.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Because again, like, it's you have to let's get into this advice, because I thought about this and I wrote a lot of this down, because I think some of this, and honestly, I thought about that moment, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these points I made in that moment.
Okay. All right.
So
let's get into it.
So the first one here, advice, okay, to keep you from being a complete kingmaker, okay? Number 1, you need to build a good deck. You need to build a good deck to not put yourself in that position. Because if your deck is just, I'm all out of gas and now I'm top decking. Remember, like Jim talks about, like, again, you can still top deck and still be in a position to win. Like that does happen. Okay. Yep. But the more options that you have, again, if you're at 0 lore and you're in last place, if you have 0 cards in your hand, you can't affect anything. You can't. But the more cards that you have, then the more options that you have. Now, I can see the reverse. Of there's decision paralysis. Now it's more, I have more anxiety. what do I do here? I get that. Yeah. I understand that. I acknowledge that's valid for sure. But I do think if you need to build a good deck, and I think if your deck can put you in a better position to not be in a king making position. Would you agree with that, Jim?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Okay. So the next thing, stop the next player in turn order who's about to win. That, I think, is step 1. That's not like finalizing, but I think you have to start there. In the example that we were talking about, Jim had to stop Jared from winning 100%. Jared had game on board. He 100% had game on board. So Jim had to affect his board in some way, shape, or form to make it to where he could not quest or get to 20 with the information that we had on hand, that we knew of for 100%. You have to do that. Yeah. If you decide to not stop somebody who has game on board, then you are kingmaking. You're just saying, I see it, I don't care, I'm going to do something else. Like, that is kingmaking. Like, that's what it is. Okay? So you do start there. You stop the next person who's going to get to 20 lore. Okay? That is step one. Okay? I think the next step, have a discussion with the table. Okay? In this discussion, in this scenario, right? We're talking about Jim. Okay? All right. You've got Jared. Okay, I can stop Jared, but he could be able to get to 19, but I think I've done what I can to make it to where he's not going to get to 20 with the knowledge that we have on hand. Okay. Yep. Then start the conversation of, okay, now the real tricky thing is, what do I do next? I can really make it to where Jared has zero chance. He'd have to have a lot of cards, or a card that I can't even think of, to pull it out. Or I can then move on to this next person, which in this case was me, right? But that's where you have the discussion with the table. See what the table thinks. See what that other player thinks. In this case, we're talking James. James, what do you think here? What do you think I should do? Because again, you have to think about, if you can take care of player 2 and player 3, where's player 4 at? Is he in a position? Can he do something? Right? But have that discussion. This is where your actions throughout the game are going to come into play. Why should I trust you? Yada, 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 yada. Okay. But I do think you need to have some sort of discussion, okay? Because the other thing too is, it does help getting other players' opinions. Getting an opinion of someone who's not necessarily involved in the play at hand, right? All right. Next thing, keep your cards close to your chest. In this option, Jared was super quiet. He was like, I ain't going to say Jack Diddley because I know what I have in my hand. And like, you have to. Like, don't reveal potential game-winning information about the cards that you have. Don't do it. You don't have to reveal that information. Just don't do it. Like, there's not a lot. Now, I'm trying to think. Has there actually been times where I've done that? Trying to think if I've actually revealed some information like that before Tim. I don't think I have.
I usually don't. So.
I know. I'm just trying to think if there is a scenario where it would come up. Huh. I don't know. Like, there have been times, right, where again, you're playing politics, right? You and, like, let's say Jim and I are going to team up here, and we've got another opponent who we're trying to take them down a notch, okay? And we're pretty far behind, but we really need to team up to stop these other guys, okay? I may, insinuate, hey, if you can take care of this thing and this thing, I may be able to really take care of the rest of the board, but you just don't want to maybe not play a bunch of things to the board, or you just need to take care of this big threat, but I'd keep all your other cards in your hand, and trying to insinuate I have B prep, right? Wink. Or something like that, right? Because again, like, you're trying to have these discussions and not be, super obvious.
Yeah. Or drop a bunch of goats and rabbits. And,
right.
Like, you're good, man.
Right. So on that point, though, keep the discussion relevant to the known information. Okay. Yep. That's what you want to talk about, right? Again, if you're trying to keep your cards close to your chest and you want to give away too much information, right? That's why it's really good to, when you're having your arguments or your discussions, keep it relevant to what's on board. What do we all know? I know that he has these 2 cards in your hand. You need to think about that when you make your decision. Okay. If you're going to stop me, remember, we saw he did have this card when we revealed it off of, what's that card again? Nothing to Hide. There we go. So
I think we need to make a home rule of can take notes.
Yeah.
Take
True.
notes.
True. But in all honesty, though, the fact that we can't take notes makes these discussions that much more interesting and more anxious. 100%. I have way more anxiety.
Right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay, I got two more points here. The first one, play to the board. And on top of that, play to the known information. Okay. This ties into the second point a little bit. Okay. And you know what? Let me tell you what the second point is. The last one, it's be careful in playing the odds, but take the odds into consideration.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think you have to play to the board. In this scenario we're talking about, Jim took care of Kirky. He played to the board and took it to where he could not get over 20. However, he could still then get to 19. Jim played to the board. In that scenario, 100% Jim played to the board. Okay. Next step, he was playing the odds. But the moment you start playing the odds, that is where it gets dicey. It gets dicey. But again,
that's all it is, man.
I know this is a TCG. Like
you're playing nothing but odds.
You're playing nothing but odds, right? So you need to try and get see if you can play the man. See if you can play the man. Look your opponent in the eye. Dude, seriously, this is so much where this comes into play so much more in Disney Lorcana than it does in a game like Magic. Do you have it? Every single game, it's going to be, do you have it? Do you have it? This is going to come up so much more than other games. And if you, there are so many players. Jim, how many times have you played somebody where they have the worst poker face and you can play them so easily?
and you know, so many times. But I think specifically in that game, right? Like when it got to that point where I was pretty much kingmaking, I was tilted, right? Like I was full tilted.
Why were you tilted? Why are you tilted? Do you remember?
Again, it was just the whole stress thing of the Kingmaker decision.
Yeah.
You know, because it took me some time. It took me some time to figure out what it was I was doing.
Yep.
And you know, playing the man or the person is only going to work when you are not tilted, right?
That's true. That's true.
Like you have to be able to make logical decisions as to watch this person, like what's going on with them. And you know, I was not in that headspace at that time. And so yeah, that was completely out the window for me. Wasn't happening playing the person.
And that's why like like the advice is there. It's like you have to make that choice to not get tilted, right? Now, that's easier said than done. I acknowledge that. Yeah. I get it.
Dad knows. I know.
Oh yeah. 100%. 100%. But, you know, having been there multiple times, I acknowledge and realize, yeah, that's on me. Like that is 100% on me, because then I'm the one taking myself out of the game. Like I'm the one taking myself out of the game. And then also I'm taking myself out of the position to help the table, because there's going to be a point where you're going to be that guy or gal who needs to be there for the rest of the table to stop Jim, for instance, to stop the next player. Okay. You got to be there for the table. So if you're not there for the table, don't expect the table to be there for you. Right. And that's just like a life lesson, right? That's a life lesson. We all screw up, and we've all been there. We've all been there to where we've gotten tilted. Okay. It's not the end of the world. It happens. We all get it. But I do think it's important to, you know, acknowledge when you do that and then try to not do that again. Right? It's important to be able to look yourself in the mirror and realize when you've screwed up. Jim and I have had so many conversations about ourselves. Like Jim will call me out. I've called Jim out. And now it's to the point to where every single time we play a game, or we put on an episode, like literally, here's a sneak peek behind the scenes here, guys. When we record Multiplayer Madness, we wrap up our call. We're talking with our guests. The moment we hang up that call, I'm on Discord. I ring Jim, and then Jim and I talk. One of the first things that I'm asking Jim, all right, Jim, how did I do? And then Jim says, how did I do? And we are brutally honest with each other on how we think each other did. Right. And that is so, Jim, has that been beneficial?
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100% it's been beneficial.
And not just in Multiplayer Madness and not just in like for Hobbies and Happiness. I think it's super beneficial in life.
Who would have thought communication is a very important thing?
Right. 100%. But it's important for you as a player. Don't take yourself out of that game by just being tilted. Okay. But I mean, I think anyone listening to this is like, well, yeah, duh, sure. We get it.
You can say duh all you want, man.
I know.
Or whoever the person is. It's like, oh, well, obviously don't get tilted. Yeah. Because when you're playing a game for like 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
And you just keep losing and you keep losing.
Yep.
And you keep losing.
Oh, dude.
You're going to get tilted.
It's so... The first set champs I had of this season, like I was fine. Like I was losing, but I was all right. I told this story
a couple weeks. 10 p.m. one?
Yeah. I told this story a couple weeks ago. But dude, the last game, I lost. Dude, I was not having it. I was so tilted. I thought it was funny where my opponent was like, "Hey man, this is my first win. Let me have it." Like, all right, dude. Like, dude, it's 2 a.m, bro.
I would have been like, I wish it was my first win.
But I already had a win at that point, so I already had to win. So at least I didn't go over.
You're good, man. We're just gonna tell people X3 drop. All right?
X3 drop. Seriously, when I left, I'm just like, dude, I should have just went X and 2 drop. That's what I should have done.
You could have saved yourself 5 hours, man.
Oh, so funny. Oh, man. All right. So I don't know. Like this last section here, I don't even know if I want to talk about it because I don't really think there's no benefits to being a Kingmaker because you can do all of this like in every single position of the game. Okay, what do I mean? Well, would you rather be king or Kingmaker? I think not a single person would choose to be Kingmaker. Correct? What do you think, Jim?
Not in this game.
Not in this game. Yeah, exactly. Not in this game. I think, again, I'm thinking about your Talran deck, right, in Magic.
Yeah.
It's just such a different experience.
I know, right?
because you can play like I'm playing for second place, and then when the rest of the table is out, now you just surge ahead. You can't do that in this game.
No.
It's so different. So different. I mean, I think benefits of being the king. We all know what the benefits of being the king are. I don't think there's a benefit of being a Kingmaker. Like you're choosing who's going to win. I don't really think it's a benefit. Can you have some fun with it? Yeah, but I think the negatives outweigh any of the positives. Right? Because it is stressful. It's stressful on 2 fronts. A, you're not winning, and nobody likes to lose. And then B, you are, okay, I mean, you're going to make somebody happy, and then you're going to tick somebody off. Like, no, you don't care that you're making somebody happy. All you're focusing on as a human being is you're making somebody upset, right? And so, is that actually fun? No, like there's nothing fun about. I don't know, dude. In Disney Lorcana, I don't think there's anything fun about being the Kingmaker.
Yeah, if I could do that to never be Kingmaker again, that'd be great. Yeah.
But that is where I genuinely believe. I don't think in that instance, Jim. I really don't think you were kingmaking. I don't think you were kingmaking. You did what you did. You stopped Jared from getting to 20 on board.
Yeah.
You stopped him from getting on board. We screwed up because we forgot. We forgot he had that other Cricky. Okay. Yeah. The odds were way more for me to find what I needed because Jared was only going to draw one card. I don't think he had.
No, he didn't.
I don't think he had Hiram on board at that point. No. I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
So he was only going to draw one card. I was going to draw a lot. I was going to draw a lot. And I don't think I don't know if I was going to be able to find the dime. I can't remember. But
I don't remember if we looked or where it was.
Yeah, I can't remember. But I had a very good shot at finding it. Yeah. Very, very good shot. So,
not to mention, I mean, you already went through a bunch of cards in your deck. I think you had like maybe 20 cards left.
I didn't have a lot of cards left.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
I did not have a lot of cards left. So
I just could not take those odds of like,
right.
If I stop him completely, Dan just, in my brain, it was like, Dan can just win.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's where, and my position, my standpoint there was, I wanted to win, right? I wanted to win, so I didn't want him to completely take me out.
Yeah.
So my brain was, I was trying to influence his decision of, no, you have to completely give me a chance, right? Yeah, you got to give me a chance. Like, that's what I'm trying to do, right? So, and that's why I was literally was just hard. Like, if you leave John Silver, that's right. If you leave John Silver, you can take care of everything else. Leave John Silver, then he can give Tamatoa Reckless, so I don't have to quest. But I'm still looking for that dime, right? So anyway, like it's again, guys. If you didn't watch that episode, you need to go back and watch it. Really good thing that came up specifically for this episode, right? Yeah. Really, really, really good. But don't. Again, I think to wrap this up, okay, let's go over this advice again, okay? 1, build a good deck to not put yourself in the position of being Kingmaker. I think a lot of it does come. Yeah, right. A lot of it does come down to deck building. Okay. The second point, good baseline. Stop the next player in turn order who's about to win. You gotta start there. If somebody's gonna get to 20 and you can make him get to 18, do that first. That's step 1. Okay. Then you can. What's next is the discussion, right? I think you gotta stop the next player who's gonna win 100% first. That's step 1. Then have a discussion with the table. Okay. Take it outside of yourself because that does indeed help take anxiety off of your plate. Helps you be less anxious when you're able to talk with other people. Okay. That being said, keep your cards close to your chest. Keep that information that could potentially win you the game. Don't let people know that because that's going to change their decisions, right? Keep the discussion when you're talking to the table. Keep it relevant to known information. And then when you're making your decisions, play to the board and play to the known information. Because the last point is be careful in playing the odds, but take the odds into consideration. And I think that is where you're going to get most anxious is because the odds are you don't know. It's very refreshing and the discussions are easier when you're talking about known information. But the moment you start talking about unknown information, that's when we as human beings start getting anxious and we're like, oh man, but hey man, that's TCGs. It's TCGs, man. But that's why that's last. Think about everything else first. Think about all those other things first. And then once you have all of that nailed down, then you can start like, all right, let's now think about the odds. And that is why, taking myself out of this, I do think Jim made a good decision when he did that in Multiplayer Madness 13. I think it was a very, very valid line. I was just a little salty in the moment because I wanted to win.
You wanted to be the king.
Wanted to be the king. That's
Undisputedly.
I wanted to be king undisputed. That's exactly what it was. So that being said, Jim, do you have any final closing thoughts for this topic, and then maybe some final thoughts on Multiplayer Madness 13?
Yeah, when we were talking in that game, right, in Multiplayer Madness 13, everyone was like, "Oh, it was a bad call," or Dan was saying,
I was saying
call.
that. Nobody else was. I was.
But the negativity speaks louder than everything else.
For sure.
So
for sure.
And obviously you never know the best thing to do.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yep.
Or hindsight's 2020.
Yep.
It's going to happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're even in a 1v1 game, you're doing stuff. You're like, oh, I should have done that differently. Mm-hmm. Why didn't I see this?
Yep.
And so don't be too hard on yourself, guys.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Because again, like I said, when we watched that, and then when we were when I watched that video back, and then I saw both crickies in his hand, I'm like, see, we knew that. We saw it. We just sort of forgot
knew that.
Well, what I'm saying is we saw it.
Yeah.
We saw the information. We just forgot.
Yeah. If we were able to take notes, we would have known. 100%.
Right. Yeah. So with all that being said, we're going to kick it to you guys. What do you all think about this topic of being king or kingmaker? Have you been in this position before? Have you been in the position of kingmaking? Do you like it? Do you hate it? If you genuinely like it, let us know. I would be very interested to know who actually likes being a kingmaker.
Not in this game.
So if you do, don't forget, leave us a comment down below. We'd greatly appreciate it. And again, just really genuinely let us know. We're genuinely curious on what you think about this topic of being king or kingmaker. Now, before we get out of here, I do want to talk about one other thing that's happening that's not involved with Disney Lorcana. All right, so there's this new game that's coming out. It's called the Bazaar. I have been hyped for this game for years. It closed beta is coming on October 30th. If you want to get involved, if you want to play the closed beta, you can send me a DM. You can send me a DM on Discord or Twitter, and I can send you a referral link. It's a referral link. Anybody can. I don't know if anybody can sign up. I think anybody can sign up. But you have to get a founder's pack. You can pay a certain amount of money, and then you can get access. There's like 3 different tiers. But if you do sign up, if you want to sign up, use my referral link because I get some sweet in-game goodies. Okay. But that being said, genuinely, guys, the Bazaar is such a cool game. I told Jim about this a couple of days ago. Jim, what have you looked into about this game? I know you've looked a little bit, but what have you seen about it thus far?
Yeah, I was watching the video. I liked that it was, pretty much a former Hearthstone pro. That guy himself is, really cool, smart dude.
Yep.
Amazing card game player.
His name's Renaud.
Yes.
Raynad.
Yeah, Raynad. Yeah.
Yep.
I completely forgot it.
Yep.
And but yeah, I like the group of people that they have behind it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't too big into the Blizzard's, what was it, Battlefield?
Battlegrounds. Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wasn't good at it, but I loved how the game looked and how it operates.
Yeah.
I like games along those lines. What League of Legends has their Teamfight Tactics.
Yep.
Yeah, Teamfight Tactics.
Yep.
And it's just like you're building up this army over time. Army. Your characters. And they're just getting stronger and stronger. You're watching them develop, over the course of the time, and you just hope that your cards are better than your opponent's cards. So it is a really cool idea.
Yep.
I can't wait to play it.
Yeah. So the Bazaar, they describe it as a hero building game. So you are a character it's called the Bazaar, but is a hero builder. The way the game first started was they started building the game as a digital multiplayer deck builder. Then they got rid of the decks, they got rid of the cards, and this is what they're left with. The game looks
They got rid of the whole idea.
They did. But what I appreciate and why I think Reynad is like a phenomenal designer is his philosophy was he wanted to make the best game. He was not tied to it has to look like this. It has to be a card game. It has to be a deck builder, right? I love deck builders. Jim, I think, loves deck builders as well. We've done a ton of content around deck building games. We love it, right? But this feels very much like it. Now, I haven't played it yet. I've just consumed so much content over the past couple of years about this game. And it looks phenomenal. It looks extremely polished. If you guys know who Kriparian is, he used to be another former Hearthstone. I don't even know if he still plays. But he's a big streamer in was in Hearthstone.
I think he's big in Diablo 4 right now, maybe.
Oh, I don't even know. But all I know is he put out a video recently talking about how it's more polished than Hearthstone is. And Hearthstone has been out for how many years now, right?
If that's one thing Blizzard does well is has very polished games. Feels very nice.
And if the Bazaar is more polished than that, I mean, that's crazy. So, but what I was going to say, what I love about and appreciate about Reynad is he completely changed how the game was because he's out to make the best game that he can. It's about making the best game, not being tied to a specific thing, right? And so that, coupled with the fact that folks are saying it's more polished than Hearthstone is, I am so hyped to get in. I will be streaming this game maybe for a little bit. I'm super hyped to get in and just sit down and play it. So that is the Bazaar. You can head over to playthebazaar.com. And you know what? I'm actually going to leave a link to my referral link in the description of the video and the podcast notes. So if you want to check it out, it's a referral link. I get something in return if you click it and you sign up through that link. I want that to be known.
Channel.
Yes.
Click the link.
Yeah, click the link, support, but you are in no pressure. But hey, if you do it, I love you. That's awesome. So use the affiliate link. So that's the Bazaar.
If you don't, we still love you, just
Correct.
Slightly a little bit less.
So that is playthebazaar.com. Closed beta begins October 30th, 2024. I'm so hyped for this. It's gonna be sick. I'm super stoked. Super stoked. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I talked about that before we left. So again, let us know what you all think of the episode today. Let us know down below in the comments. Leave us a review. Let us know what you guys think. And again, don't forget, if you want to support us over on Patreon, you can head over to patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. Again, that is patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. Check out the 3 different levels of support that we have over there. And then again, that's patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. You can join us in Discord, link down below in the description or in the podcast notes, wherever you're listening or watching us. And again, if you are listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform of choice, leave us a review. We greatly appreciate any reviews that just says, hey, you guys are awesome. We thank you so much. We love you. And again, if we get some good reviews, we'll read them on the show. So, all right. That's all we got for you this week. I really enjoyed this topic, and I think this is going to be a good one for folks to listen to. Jim, really appreciate your insight, especially. Thank you for bringing it up for Multiplayer Madness 13.
Oh my goodness.
Really good information. Really good information to talk about. So, Jim, thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun, and we was yeah. So, without any further ado, we'll see you all next week. And in the words of the great Mickey Mouse, we'll see y'all real soon.